Okay. So if the last video was like campaign diary number 0, I guess, this is kind of number 0.5. It still talks a lot about things in the background, things that could happen, things that I kind of intend to happen, but it's not really talking about the party directly. All a bunch of things like around and related to them that they don't really understand yet. And there's a lot. Uh, I really enjoy scheming on a broad scale. Um, my writing kind of reflects that, in that it's really fun for me to think of a situation and think of what led up to it and how's it going to be solved. And that's just the kind of scheming that I like. So, I guess the actual start to all of my foreshadowing for them happened in the Fovikel Forest. And when they were there, they had to fight for a job a green dragon wormling. Nothing stands out about that. They're in a forest. That's its natural habitat. It makes a whole lot of sense. However, they do not know its parentage. I happen to. Its mother was the ancient green dragon, who is currently in the Fovikel forest, working behind the scenes as kind of my big bad evil guy, which is anybody familiar with D&D kind of understands it. It's just your ultimate villain if they get to 20th level or whatever. That's like the final task for them to overcome is going to be my ancient green dragon. Um, she is like, in terms of how I characterize my green dragons, their first languages are manipulation and sadism. She's got a lot up her sleeve, so to speak. So that was my first little bit. And after that, it's been pretty light on things until they got up to Darshayan, which I knew and everybody knew was going to be content loaded because it's where they're going to get their contract. So the first thing was something that I mentioned in the last video. They got the Silver Dragon Blade. What they don't know is that while this sword, they may have an inkling that the sword shares the dragon's alignment, the dragon can see through the sword at any point in time. He is effectively able to keep tabs on them. My ancient silver dragon, who's basically like, if I basically say my silver and gold churches combined to sort of be my critiques of Catholicism. If that's the case, my silver dragon is sort of a Christ-like creature in that his main purpose is to bring hope to everybody. Um, one of the big ones of note is that he actually helped build this Temparan bridge, which has a lot of historical symbolism in my world, and in basically that it brought the two kingdoms together. Though they've been one for goodness knows how long now, and nobody really remembers that they used to be two kingdoms. But the fact that a god's able to monitor them at all times is a really big deal behind the scenes, which is where most of my really big deals are right now. So, besides just getting that, they were actually given it by the eagle, who is the main character from my writings. And the dragon told him to give it to them because he's going to pass away soon and he's going to be known as the first saint. No real meaning in this yet. It might be relevant in a later campaign later in my world's history. But he's going to pass away, and this means that the dragon finds it very important to have more of an idea of what's going on in the world. And these four seem like they're going to be involved in a whole lot of nonsense. So that was the reason for that. And then right after getting the sword, they were introduced to King Albright, who's not intended to be a major character, but he was arguing with one Archpriest Devden, the head priest of the Silver Church, my Servants of Silver, and also one of the villains of the campaign. They haven't figured that out yet. They saw him threatening King Albright, and they were given the standard explanation that like just about everybody knows of the Servants of Silver and most of the other churches take big offense to the fact that the first rule and the second rule, the Crown of Tempara, is currently not affiliated with any one religion. It's kind of been standard across the world for a long time to do that, so the fact that they're not is kind of pissing everybody off. Kind of the point, if you ask the eagle, but you weren't asking the eagle. So when the threats that were being given out were kind of they were mostly just like your standard political threats, but I wanted to make it clear that this Archpriest Devdin is not a great dude. He's spiteful. He is more than willing to use whatever resources he has to get back at people he'd like to get back at, because sometimes the head priest is not a perfect representation or a perfect like representative, I guess, of the person, of the god for which they're the head priest. Now, you may have noticed, as I know I need to stop on this point, I've switched between head priest and archpriest. The reason he's known as Archpriest Devdin is because of how much influence he holds over the other metallic churches. Technically, he is only the number one in the Servants of Silver. Technically, that means that his power should expand no further. However, it doesn't always end up being that way when, overall, Tempara's respect for my sovereign hope, the Silver God, is immense. And he kind of leverages that and has a whole lot of sway in the other churches. It's not equivalent to, as I mentioned, like Catholicism earlier, or in the last video, one of the two. It's not equivalent to the Pope, but he's kind of in that sort of a position where if he says something and he's opposed in it, that's not a good thing for them. So they met Archpriest Devdin, and not long afterward, they had shadows attack them in a random town. He has his own little hit group behind the scenes trying to grate and work against them. It is going to become progressively more obvious as they find out. Next big plot point with this dragon up in the Verpar Mountains is that he's only been attacking people who are avid members of the Servants of Silver, because he detected a change. I think it's he. I don't remember their name at the moment. But this dragon detected a change in the Servants of Silver recently, and one that's not good. An important note that I should break away on: all of my mortal dragons share the same ideals and alignment as their ancient ancestors. So this is a metallic dragon that they're going to be fighting. It shares the same alignment. It has the same concept of humanity should be allowed to flourish under their own authority that all metallic dragons share. So it's been attacking people who are avid members of the Servants of Silver because he's detected a larger shift in the servants' mentality. He doesn't know what the dragon has no idea what the deal is, but this is its idea of helping on a cosmic scale. They think in much bigger terms than human lifespans do. So the idea, and for Odablo, is that my party can go ahead and find out that he's only been attacking members of the Servants of Silver and can come at him and specifically say, why them? And then they can get that information. They can find out, well, there's something wrong with the Servants of Silver. And maybe they'll want to talk to Archpriest Devdin about that. Maybe they won't. I don't know. I legitimately have no idea how they're going to handle the information. Are they going to attack the servants blindly? Are they going to try to talk to the Silver Fox, the current general, about that? I have no idea. It is up to them. And I'm looking forward to see how they handle that issue. But of course, what's a good plan if it's only at a base level like that? Because if your first languages are sadism and manipulation, there's no way your plan only has one level. You're not just relying on Archpriest Devdin to do whatever the heck you're doing, are you? You're causing a commotion. A commotion that might just originate down in the Azana Desert. So, what is effectively happening is, if you look in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, there is a monster known as the Swordwraith Commander. um, they kind of spin it as the soul of a soldier who died without being able to attain the glory he sought after. For example, he may have been killed in an ambush and not given an ample chance to fight back. He might have been poisoned. He might have been killed by magic at a long range. Again, no chance to fight back. But that sort of thing. No glorious death on the battlefield, no glorious victories. And it was none other than the scheming dame, my green goddess, who brought back this Sword Wraith commander in the south. Despite what some of my players think, it was not whites who attacked those soldiers. It was Sword Wraith warriors. And slowly but surely, this commander is amassing an army of them. Them, interspersed with other monsters and stuff with the help of the scheming dame, but at its core, the Sword Wraith warriors are going to be like the commanders of each unit. And at some point, war is going to break out. And whether or not Tempara is prepared is going to be very, very dependent on Maz Morsing himself. Because, like I said in the other video, Maz failed his plan in Fort Harnock, and then he lied. He fed Scarlet misinformation. The country of Tempara currently still has no idea what happened. Now, behind the screen, I rolled like a 26 on my insight to see whether or not she figured out that Maz was lying, and she did. So she is going to talk to him about that whenever given the opportunity. But whether or not... Oh, yawn. Whether or not he agrees to come out and tell the truth is entirely out of my hands. I'm not going to force him at all. Whether or not I cast Zone of Truth on him is a different matter, but hey. So, if he gives them ample information, then they will... I don't think they're going to abandon Fort Harnock no matter what, since she called out the lie, but they're not going to be prepared. They have no idea what's coming their direction. And if she gives if Maz offers an accurate description to her, she's going to draw a blank. Nobody has heard of Sword Wraiths in a really long time. And if you want to find out something from a really long time ago, there's one god you go to. The chronicler of all time. Sapphire god. He'd have some idea. But where is he? Who knows? And that's going to be their next challenge. Now, obviously, this is, like, speaking theoretically, and, like, if they take the path that, like, I kind of intend for them, but I'm not railroading them into it. My idea right now is that the bluff gets called. He owns up. Not gonna happen. I don't know why I'm holding out any vain hope that he would actually do that. But the bluff gets called, and he owns up to it. And they're like, well, we need to go find the governor of the mind. How the heck they figure out the god's location, I don't know. But I have an idea for how they could come across it. If it's made known that that's what they're looking for, there is, I need to move my camera down, a little bit of a side questy thing waiting for them down here in Port Silva. As the pirate crew that Tiss led, has been, has its new captain, and it's not one that Tiss instated. So, I don't think instated was the right word. I think I just meant installed, but oh well. I'm not cutting any of this. So, he was kind of their resident information broker. They, like, took out small ships holding big treasure, kind of a small to medium risk for medium to high reward. That was their whole game. And usually they were not a big issue, which is why the Temparan military never really took care of them. But if Tiss goes to Port Silva in an attempt to kill this guy and reclaim I think it's Wisteria is the name of her ship, and reclaim the Wisteria, he's going to try to weasel his way out of being killed by saying that he has information for them. That maybe he has information that might be able to lead them to the god, which it would. He's an information broker and a damn good one. So if they want to do that, then they can. But it's just a lot of very interesting. I'm weaving quite the web behind the scenes. They've got 2 layers to handle around Archpriest Devdin, or like between, I should say, Archpriest Devdin and my Swordwraith warrior, who's going to be known as the Scorpion, and is going to be wielding my Black Dragon Blade, which I'm very excited to reveal. So they have that to deal with, and my Black Dragon is like the only one that isn't worshipped. He's basically kill, war. That's it. That's his whole shtick. That's all he cares about. So the sword's going to be accordingly powerful. But they've got at least those 2 problems to deal with. If they want to find out the nature of a sword wraith, and especially the name, they're going to have to figure out a way to locate the Sapphire God. And then, even if they manage all of that, even if they handle the war, if they decide to even participate in it, even if they handle Archpriest Devdin, who the hell is behind it? And these are questions I'm going to leave them to ask. Don't intend to feed them all that much information from this point out, because the questions are theirs to ask. I, as the DM, can point them in the direction of asking such a question, but I'm not forcing them to do anything. I don't think that's good DMing. I think the best DM is one that listens. I'm very quickly realizing, I should say, the best DM is just one that listens to his party. So that's what I'm doing. I'm listening to what they're talking about, what they want to do, their interests, their motivations, and I'm kind of trying to make sure that everything stays interesting to them, stays fresh. And this dungeon is supposed to help a lot in that regard, because it's going to be their first time in a dungeon. They're going to have to learn how to work as a party in close quarters. They're going to have puzzles to solve and multiple layers of stuff. But eventually, oh goodness, with how XP works out, I don't know. I kind of hope for them to be level 5 by the time they finish it. At which point, I'll probably have some magic items ready for people. I'm not entirely sure, because I just kind of need weaker stuff for them, but that's on the table for sure. But that's a lot of what's going on behind the scenes right now. It's just a lot of little pieces kind of just slowly being put together. Again, whether or not they realize any of it, out of character, I don't really care, though that'd be insane if they did. But in character, it'd kind of be even crazier if they were able to weave together some of this stuff before it was made like particularly obvious to them. But that is kind of the direction that this campaign has taken thus far, and the direction that I foresee it taking. But again, no DM's plans ever work out the way they want them to. So I'm just going to have to keep on keeping on and hope that I can at least maintain their interest in the game for a while longer. There's also a lot of little pieces of like really neat world history that I'd love to nerd out to them about, like if they ask about Fort Galba and the city of Galba, which I know they won't. Anyway, I think that's about it for this, but that is a pretty holistic idea of what's going on. Well, no, it's not holistic by any means. It is a pretty good idea at a broad level of what's going on behind the scenes right now, what everybody's doing, what everybody's looking. No, it's not. I'm silly. I forgot the most important aspect. So I mentioned in the last video, my dragons are all bound by something called the Draconic Pacts, which I have written now and intend for them to roughly follow. It's more of an idea for how they work for me, because writing things out helps me out a lot in that kind of regard. The Cataclysm was this big event 100 years ago that brought my world from being a low magic setting to a high magic setting. Magic is now incredibly common. It also introduced psionics into the world, where previously they only existed within creatures that possess them innately, like innately per the books, including my Ancient Dragons. Nobody currently living in my world has a fantastic idea of what the cause of the cataclysm was. But of course, I'm the DM. I know everything. What happened was, somebody invoked the names of the actual gods, the ones from my upper and my lower planes, and their war is kind of what birthed the gods, and they have stopped being involved within Etrura, the name of the world, because they realized how much their fighting hurt it. Just to give like a quick outline for that. However, somebody invoked the names of the gods, the true gods, and the names of a couple of the draconic ones, in an attempt to do something. It doesn't really matter what it was specifically, but they were invoked. And then he was killed partway through his ritual. That is what started the cataclysm, was that ritual. It tore a rift between the material plane and the upper and lower planes, and to a lesser extent the adjacent elemental ones. It also freed 3 gods from the pacts. Nobody knows this. This is like one of the most closely guarded secrets in all of Etrura. The Silver God, the Green Goddess, and I haven't really decided. It's either my Emerald or my Amethyst gods, probably, on the, what's the word, gemstone scale, who have been released from their pacts. I haven't made an official ruling on that yet, but they have been released from it. They are able to interact with humanity as much as and to whatever degree they want to, which is how the Scheming Dame is able to do all of this behind the scenes in the first place. She's using Archpriest Devton. Like I said, the Scorpion's a distraction. The Scorpion down in Azana, the Swordwraith Commander, is a distraction to turn everybody's focus away from Archpriest Devton. Archpriest Devton, it's very difficult, even absolved of the pacts, to learn the actual names of those gods, the true ones, I'm going to call them. It's still really difficult to learn the names of them because it's such a closely guarded secret, and even though the Scheming Dame is no longer held to the pacts, she still has trouble just giving out that information, kind of like a residual effect of it, if you would. But she is able to give it out. She is able to give out the actual names, like the proper names, like in Draconic, etc., of the other gods. And if he's able to invoke the names of all 15 of them, plus the true gods, the pacts will all be dissolved, and he might just become the most powerful creature, or the most powerful person in the realm. Period. I don't even know what happens at that point. The power of it might kill him, and it could be that the only thing that happens is that the dragons are absolved of their pacts, which is still a huge deal, because these things have been around for eons, and have been very, very important in shaping the world's history by limiting what the gods are and aren't allowed to do on a day-to-day basis. Really a year-to-year basis, but potato, potato. So that's what the big goal there is to absolve them of the pacts, and who knows what happens afterward. The pacts, mind you, do also extend past just the gods. There are effectively other ones in the middle that make it so that, for example, Tis came from the lower realms. Like, a tiefling does not strictly have to, but she did. She cannot say that that's where she came from. She could say, "Oh, I came from hell," but it was just like, "Oh, ha 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 ha, funny joke, whatever." They don't realize it's literal. They don't realize that she knows the name of one of the true gods and is not capable of saying that he exists, or that, like, the draconic ones are not the only ones. She can't say anything about it. The couple times, and it's similar with Aasimar, the couple times that somebody has attempted to invoke their names or imply that they exist, I've just kind of said that, like, you see their mouth moving, but no sound's coming out of it, and it's kind of blurred so that nobody would even be able to read your lips. Like, there's something really powerful happening here. And if that stops, I don't know what happens to my world. the best I can figure, all the religious organizations enter an uproar. There's a state of civil unrest everywhere, and that's about it. But, that's why I have people trying to stop that sort of thing from happening. And if I do run another campaign in this world, it will be after that happens. And I have like little bits thought out for it, but nothing cohesive yet, because I'm not worrying about another campaign in the first legs of my first one. Um, but that, I believe, is actually everything that's going on in my world at a pretty high level. There's obviously personal motivations and a lot of other stuff happening, but I don't want to bore. I don't want to bore people just by talking about like all these random little details. Um, yeah. So once again, that's basically zero point 0.5, and I might start doing these after each session to talk about things that I thought were interesting from the sessions themselves and kind of like relate it back to other things that are happening behind the scenes. So I doubt the rest of this series would be okay for people in my party to watch, especially ones prone to metagaming. Uh, but yeah, this was a really good way to just kind of get some stuff off my chest that I can't really say to my party, but man, would I like to. But yeah, that should be about it for this one. See ya.